Oh man, so the crypto market is really red this morning, and I'm going to share with you the reason why, which a lot of people aren't actually talking about. So we can see here that Bitcoin has, since breaking out of this wedge, it kind of started breaking out of this wedge and went horizontal and then has just come down over the last day or two. And we can see that we're now heading down to the target at the bottom of the wedge, which is 53,400. You're seeing a little bit of support at this level here. And you can see we've got two green hourly candles. So maybe we can get a rotation back up here. But there's a larger macroeconomic trend which people are failing to talk about, and that is the figure we're going to receive at 8:30 a.m. US time, which is the CPI inflation reading. Now, again, if you haven't watched my video from yesterday on why the markets are unnervy, click here and watch that video. But this is typical the day before a CPI reading, where large institutions and Bitcoin holders will start to get a little bit nervy about the inflation reading coming up. Now, obviously, your traders will feel the same way as well, because if you're trading or swing trading on a short-term basis and you've got the CPI reading coming out tomorrow, that's going to move this market. And we've shown yesterday in yesterday's video how historically every time the readings come out, we've had a good movement and correlation over the next few days. And I suspect that'll be no different today with the CPI reading. So we're going to see the CPI reading coming in. And as we know, if inflation is high, if there's heated inflation, that is normally bullish for Bitcoin. Okay, theoretically, Bitcoin is a hedge versus inflation and fiat currency, and therefore we'd expect Bitcoin to climb. If it's the other way, and inflation's coming in lighter than expected, it's normal for Bitcoin to go horizontal or come down, okay? And that's what's going to happen if you see inflation come to the downside. Now, in yesterday's video, I gave my evidence on why I feel as though inflation is going to be a little bit more persistent than we're led to believe, right? Some of the rhetoric from the politicians has changed, from the Fed bankers, has changed towards a more persistent inflation. And we can see that initially in used car prices, for instance, or lumber, we saw a rotation down in inflation, but those prices have started ticking back up again, almost beating the highs from previously. So this CPI reading is a really important one because we're not quite sure where it's going to head. We're looking at the indicators, trying to get an idea. And obviously that's going to trigger talk for tapering as well. So a lot of people are really expecting this CPI reading to be the final green light for tapering. If you get, and then Jerome Powell should be able to come out and start the tapering process, which again can impact the crypto market. So with that said, let's take a look at where we are at. So we can see Bitcoin has cooled down about 2% from where we were at. It's come down. You're getting a bit of support here at 54,460. If we lose that, we're probably headed down to about 53,400, okay? Now, you remember in my video yesterday that I wasn't too averse to Bitcoin cooling down. Remember, this is the larger trend line. Look at the white trend line I've drawn here. This is on the daily chart, and you can see we've kind of touched this line, came back up, touched this line, come back up, and I wouldn't be averse to us coming back and testing this trend line as well, okay? So you can see we're still very extended from our EMA ribbon. Let me just zoom in. You can see we're still very extended from this EMA ribbon. So any cooling off, coming down to this region, testing the EMA ribbon and getting closer to this white line and getting a bounce back up, I'm not averse to that, because that would just mean we have a more sustained upward trend, which is what's really important here, okay? We want a sustained upward trend. So that being said, we're still in the early hours of somewhat of a cooling off. We can't really call it a massive cooling off on the day chart yet. Yes, on the hourly, we flip bearish, which suggests we would come back and test the levels I've suggested. We could easily get a rotation back up here and continue the run. We're definitely on the daily still very bullish, like I've shown you. We're very extended from the EMA ribbon, and we're nowhere near being even neutral. This is still bullish territory. We're still on a great pump here on Bitcoin. Now, let's see. And obviously, in relation to that, you've got all of the altcoins down, right? We even saw when Bitcoin was running, these altcoins weren't running, let alone when Bitcoin is a 0.6% down at this point. Ethereum is down. However, one thing you can notice is the altcoins are holding some strength, okay? So they're not moving up, but they are holding some strength. So let's take a look at coin market cap. Let's have a refresh. And you can see here, Bitcoin is down 3% over the last 24 hours, but you could see in some coins holding strength. They're not making seeing massive moves, apart from a few. I saw Solana start to push up a little bit yesterday night, and then I saw two others. One which is DOT, which I've mentioned many times before. DOT has not had a move when the other coins had their moves, right? So DOT is well due a move, and I've got DOT as an allocation in my portfolio, and it's well due a move on Polkadot. We also know with Polkadot, they're announcing, they have an announcement around their parachains today, so that's going to be much anticipated and watched. We also have Binance coin running 16%, and that is partly due to this. Binance launches $1 billion fund to fast track blockchain tech adoption, okay? So again, this is about people fighting for the best use cases on the crypto ecosystems, right? Decentralized computing, gaming, metaverse, virtual reality, artificial intelligence. We know a lot of the layer one solutions are fighting for this kind of adoption, and we've seen this from Solana, from Ethereum, from Cardano. They're all trying to attract the best dApp builders, and guess what? There's not that many of them, right? Compared to your standard developers for SaaS products or for mobile applications, this system has to be built. When Apple first started, there weren't many app developers who knew how to use the SDK kits, right? You have to attract them through obviously clientele, through the community, through telling them that they can build a great business on your infrastructure. And that's exactly what's happening here with dApp builders, right? dApp developers. Now, we're seeing that there's a massive arms race to attract the best talent, and that's leading to bigger and bigger funds like Binance have announced to attract the best developers. So Binance, obviously being a centralized version of this on their Binance Smart Chain, is trying to compete with the decentralized versions we're seeing on Ethereum, Solana, Phantom, etc. Okay, so let's head back over to the charts. And one thing I wanted to look at was the Bitcoin dominance. So I wanted to spend some time looking at this Bitcoin dominance with you guys. And if we switch to the daily view, let's switch off our EMA ribbon, you'll see that we had this channeling up, right? We broke out this long-term downward wedge, we channeled up on Bitcoin dominance, and we've got our calling off here. So this is suggesting that Bitcoin's calling down a little bit, and we're getting a little bit of rotation back to altcoins. I made my view very clear that I'm not rotating into Bitcoin massively, right? A lot of people are FOMOing in and selling all their altcoins to get into Bitcoin. I wasn't doing that. I'm happy to build my Bitcoin position, and I'm happy to build my altcoin position. I'm happy with my allocation. That's why it's really important to get your allocation right from the outset. So you're not trying to panic, you're not trying to time the market and, oh, when do I get into alts? When do I sell everything, get into Bitcoin? That's when you're going to get burnt, right? So a lot of people now they'll be panicking, right? All those people who sold their alts and FOMO'd into Bitcoin at 57, now they're going to be panicking as Bitcoin comes down for a correction towards 52. And then, that's not a healthy market, right? A healthy market is have your allocation and invest and hold for the long term in great projects which you believe in. So that's your Bitcoin dominance getting a little bit of cooling off over the last 2 days. But again, it's been on a massive tear. So I'm expecting Bitcoin to cool down a little bit and Bitcoin dominance, and I think that's actually a good thing. Now let's look at the total too, which is the market cap excluding Bitcoin, and you can see we're still strong here, right? We had a big rally up, and which shows that all coins are still gaining strength. We've not seen this fall, so we're not getting massive reduction in altcoin market cap. We are getting some rotation out, which has stopped the upwards momentum. That's what's going on here, but we're not falling down. Altcoins are holding firmly, they're just not growing, and that's what we're seeing here at the moment. Let's take a look at the shorts. We've still not got a massive amount of shorts, so that gives Bitcoin confidence to run ahead on the next pump. And ultimately, that's what I'm expecting here. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, coming back to Bitcoin, I wouldn't be surprised if we come down, we test, and we go back higher to test that 60,000 mark with more momentum, with more energy, with more volume, right? It gives people more of a chance to get in, and I think this is a healthy way of growing up as opposed to just tearing up parabolically, at which point whatever goes up quickly can fall just as quickly as well. So let's take a quick look at Binance. Like I said, we saw the news on the $1 billion fund, and you can see Binance has made a smart move since the start of October. You would have captured about 40% on your Binance. But still, Binance has got a long way to go. I mean, you got to remember, in the peak euphoria, Binance was pumping up to close to $700, okay? So Binance sitting here at 460. Still a lot of potential for Binance to climb higher. It's not, I mean, they've had a lot of regulatory FOMO kind of go around, and that's obviously put a downward pressure on their price and sideways pressure on their price. But the fact of the matter is, there's so much value locked in Binance. There's so much use cases used in Binance. I know here in the UK, they got a bunch of regulatory grief from the FCA, and a lot of people cannot use Binance now, and particularly for their derivatives. And obviously that's weighing on the Binance coin. Just looking at DOT as well. So DOT we're waiting for their announcement, and I wouldn't be surprised if DOT gets a move as well. You can see I've indicated we've got this cup and handle pattern, which has formed quite nicely. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get a movement off here, off the 35 mark, much higher, and even going and testing that level here at about 47.92 on DOT. I think DOT is one of those that once it decides to move, it's going to absolutely move. I mean, just look at that here. Sideways for a long time, fell, coming back up, but we're due this kind of a move on DOT soon. It's a great project. It's just been missed because it's not the most fan-friendly project, right? It's not the easiest to understand. People don't understand the parachains. It's far more easier for people to jump into a Doge or even a Solana, right? Which is obviously a solid project. I'm not saying Solana's not a solid project. It's just easier to understand a layer one platform than it is to understand a parachain play, which is far more complicated. So a lot of people overlook DOT and Chainlink, and that's why I always say that's important parts of my portfolio. Again, if you haven't watched that video, go check that out. If I remember, I'll link it up here. So there we go, guys. That's what we're seeing in the altcoin market. We're seeing Bitcoin with a cooling off. We're seeing a little bit of a rotation back into some of the altcoins, but I don't think that's happening fully yet. I think what we've had here in the market is Bitcoin has decided to go on a run, right? Bitcoin went on a run. You've seen a bunch of inexperienced investors sell their altcoins and rotate across into Bitcoin. In other words, they FOMO'd across. Now, Bitcoin predictably is having a little bit of a cooling off ahead of the inflation CPI reading in the next couple of hours. And now people are going to be panicking, why did I buy Bitcoin? And that's why it's really important that you hold tokens and shares and assets, real estate, anything you're investing in, right? Hold the ones which you have high conviction in. You can't be manipulated by these markets easily. If a little bit of news or a little bit of price change is suddenly getting you really anxious and sweaty and you're ready to sell, then you've bought off of a lack of conviction. And that's really important that we understand that, guys. So CPI reading coming in very shortly. We'll keep a close eye on that and see what kind of a movement that has on Bitcoin. If the reading's nothing to shout home about, I wouldn't be surprised if Bitcoin just carries on with its run. If it's a really high inflation reading, I wouldn't be surprised if Bitcoin really does shoot up. And if it's a really low reading, showing that inflation has really ticked to the downside and it is transitory like has been promised to us, then maybe Bitcoin can go sideways / even down to test some of those support lines back on that white trend line which I showed you. So there we go, guys. That's what's happening with Bitcoin. If you like this type of video, then please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.